everybody. If everyone could please take a seat, we're going to get started so we can stay on time today. Everybody, please take your seats. Come on in. Lots of seats up front. All right, well, welcome for coming to this year's Candidate Forum here in the town of Vail. My name is Allison Wadey. I'm the Executive Director of Vail Chamber and Business Association. I just wanted to take a quick second to thank our sponsors today. Our main sponsor is the Vail Board of Realtors. They've been doing this for almost 10 years now, and it's a really amazing partnership that we have with them, so thank you to them. Also wanted a special thank you to High Five Media Access. They are filming today. You can watch it on YouTube, so if you have any friends who can't be here, you can text them and tell them where to watch. We'll also have it up in multiple places afterwards, so if there's anything you want to go back and rewatch and take more notes. But also, thank you to Grazing Fox for providing the food in the back, the snacks, and also just for the town of Vail for giving us this wonderful place to host the forum. It's always such a great building to have it in. And then a thank you to our candidates today. We have Dave Tucker, who's up on Zoom. We had to change the date kind of at the last minute, and so we appreciate him being willing to Zoom in because he had already made plans to go visit family. But it takes a lot of guts to come up here and run for town council, and we just really appreciate all of you. In light of that, in our political climate these days, let's keep applause and verbal cues and everything to a minimum. We're all neighbors and friends at the end of the day, and we all live here and want what's best for the town. Unless you have some applause for Mark Gordon, who is going to be our moderator tonight. Standing ovations are welcome. So here we go. Never inappropriate. So if you have any questions throughout the evening, you can put them on a card, and in the back we'll go through. If there's anything that hasn't been addressed and we have time, we'll get to that. If there's an overwhelming amount of questions that we don't get to that aren't addressed, I will send them to the candidates and they can have a chance to email me back, and we'll post that somewhere too, so if there's things that people want to hear about. All right? Thanks again, you guys. We appreciate it. Good luck, guys.
Thank you, Allie. I was going to start off also by thanking the sponsors, but you know what? We can never thank them enough, so I'll still start the same way so I can get into the group. Want to thank first Allie and the VCBA. How many board members from the VCBA are here? Are there quite a few? Yes. Thank you for all of the work you guys do. The town is very appreciative. Grazing Fox for the food, High Five Access Media. How many people, raise your hands if you've watched any of the video, the podcast? So thank you. It is the 40th anniversary, is that correct? 40th anniversary of High Five Access Media. I was on the board back when I was on council many years ago, and it's come so far, which I don't want to take that lesson that me being off the board and then it's come far, but it is what's causation versus correlation. So, and then the Vail Board of Realtors, and want to thank the candidates themselves. So this is going to be a forum similar to what I did 2 years ago, unlike any of the forums that had been done in the past. I would sit in the audience, or I would sit up there, and there were forums where people received the questions, they knew the categories. I found it not useful at all as a voter. And it didn't give me a chance sitting up here to show what I knew. And everyone answered the same way. So the ground rule today, this is no stump speeches. It's a job interview. I'm going to ask a lot of questions that are just for one or two of you, and then ones that are specifically to you from things that you've said or voted on in the past. The main rule is if anyone says they're running because they love Vail or because they want to be involved, you lose points. Because all of us love Vail, or we wouldn't be here. All of us are involved. So I want to make sure that people, when they leave here, they can tell the difference between the candidates and where you stand on issues and how you approach problems, and how you will solve problems. Does that make sense? So I'm going to just go through and give the names. Dave, you hear me, right?
I do hear you.
And we hear you too, very deep and loud. Okay, so we've got Dave Tucker, Kim Langmaid, Barry Davis, Kevin Foley, Lauren Wallace, and Sam Biszantz. I am not giving you guys an open introduction time. So we're going to just get right into the questions. So here is where it's going to start and where we are going to start separating you guys out so that you're not just signs in a roundabout, or not signs in a roundabout, as the case may be, Kevin. So you will get points, although I'm just using points as a metaphor. Don't worry, I'm not keeping score. Creativity and specifics count. So it's 4 years from now. It's 25 now, so it's November or October of 29. You've just finished your term on the Vail Town Council, and this is going to be for all 6 of you. Looking back at your 4-year term, what is one issue that you fought the hardest for, the one thing that mattered to you most, and you made sure to see it through to success? And then, if you have time, what's one thing that you wish over those 4 years you had done differently? There is a timer. You're going to have 90 seconds for each of these questions. Let's start with Mr. Tucker on technology. It's 4 years from now.
I would really like to be able to say 4 years from now that I fought as hard as possible on the yet to be determined environmental issue. There's a couple in the running that I've been thinking about and talking with people about. But 4 years from now, I'd really like to say that I made a large impact on our community in terms of the water flowing into Gore Creek, sand oil separators in private garages, and the protection of the waterway that flows through our community.
Cool. Kim Langmaid, 4 years from now, you're finishing up. Hit microphones.
Okay, got
like
it.
a stoplight. Green is go, red is stop. It took me a second to figure that one out.
Okay, 4 years from now, we have made substantial progress on building our year-round residents. We've lost quite a few, about 1,000 in the past maybe 5 years, and so there's a goal to bring 2% more back to the community. So I want to make sure that we're tracking that and bringing those full-time residents back. Looking to the future, we need to have people that are serving on our councils, on our committees, working in town. So that's something I would really hope to make some headway on. And something that I think I might have made a mistake on,
Perhaps.
maybe tweaking the bus schedule in a wrong way or something like that, upsetting folks with transportation. Yeah, something like that.
Cool. Barry.
I'm going to start with our mistake because I promise that whatever we do with parking is going to be wrong in somebody's eyes. We're trying to get it right. We're doing the best we can. 4 years from now, to build off of what Kim said, we are going to have 1,000 new residents back in Vail. We're going to see that rising tide. And one thing that we need to do as a council, and I hopefully will look back in 4 years and be proud of, is not only did we create a place for people to live and work and play in this town, but we're going to do things that foster community. You can't just have people living here and not have them be connected to their neighbors. We all are here because we like to recreate outdoors for the most part, but we need to go beyond that and create opportunities for people, especially younger people we're bringing to town, to connect, to put down roots, to really make this place home and stay.
Kevin.
Well, Mark, I'm glad you gave me a 4-year term. As someone who's gotten 2-year terms before, it's a little tough sometimes when you're first putting your name out there. But 4 years from now, I would hope that we've made a dent in trying to solve some of the I-70 noise, especially out in East Vail and coming through town, and whether it means we have to really look forward and say, hey, how are we going to do this? How can we get the feds to help us? Do we cap some of the interstate? Do we put up sound walls? But something to improve our way of life. And then do we make a separate mill levy for a rec center? Because with all these 1,000 people coming in, we need something for people to go and be able to exercise and meet their neighbors and have a little something to do besides going out to restaurants and bars.
You're up, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't help but agree with what everyone else says, but one of the reasons I'm up here is because I think it's imperative that we build future leadership on our council, and we have a team that understands the importance of continuity combined with growth. We'll be missing a big mark if we don't deliver the community that we built the infrastructure for, so that's going to be a huge priority. And the other thing is, if I'm going to put 4 years into this, I'm going to have people that hopefully I'm working with on boards or encouraging to be on boards that would be good candidates in the next election. Because I think the biggest mistake we can make is to only have 4 people here because we're too intimidated and we don't think there's a chance.
Sam.
Okay, in 2029, I will have hopefully fought hardest for, kind of echoing what Barry's saying, but the amenities for our residents. So to me, that includes a forever amazing home for Children's Garden of Learning that hopefully has expanded capacity to not have a 400 to 600 person wait list would be top of my list. Also recreation facilities, like Kevin said, and yeah, that's what I would really focus on for the next 4 years. What I wish I did differently would be not figuring out a way to buy down or deed restrict every home in our neighborhoods so that we save. It's never going to get cheaper. In 4 years, the houses are not going to be cheaper. And I think most people in this room regret buying that piece of real estate 20 years ago, or not buying that piece of real estate 20 years ago. And so I would do everything I can to try to get more homes into the hands of locals, because it's not going to get easier.
Cool. So just to let you know, as we're going, I do reserve the right to ask follow-up questions. But this is actually costing me money to be the moderator. I am not getting paid. So for you, $1. Dave, I am so sorry. Technology is not with your dollar will be sitting. Okay, so why did I hand out dollars? I handed out dollars because that dollar represents the entire budget of the town of Vail. You know, I could have given out 88 million, but I thought that might be a bit too much. So $1. I am not going to ask you to answer now, because one of the things that happens at the forums is you get people who say, yeah, I agree with her. Yeah, I agree with him. So I am going to ask you at random points, each of you throughout the night, to explain how you would break that dollar up to take care of what's going on in the town. So you might think of taking notes while you're doing that, while some of your fellow candidates are answering, rather than listening to them to find your answer. So keep the dollar in front of you. Remember that the budget always has to be addressed, and it's going to sit there in front of you. So I've got another question that's going to go to all of you. I'm going to start with Sam. Vail's best days, ahead or behind? Give me concrete examples that back up your answer. If you're going to be an optimist, I want to know what made the old days great and how do we keep the spirit without living in the past? And if you're going to be a little bit of a skeptic, I'd like you to say, if you think Vail's best days are behind us, what's broken and who or what is standing in the way of fixing it? Oh.
I feel like I have to be an optimist here. I would say our best days are ahead of us. They have to be ahead of us, or else what are we all doing here? Is really the question. And in terms of, wait, what was it? What was the second part, if I'm an optimist?
what made the old days great, and how do we keep that spirit without living in the past?
Oh, yeah. So this reminds me of kind of what I campaigned on last time. But I feel like what made the old days great is that we all, for the most part, everyone sort of stumbled upon Vail and then figured out how to fight to stay here, right? It's not easy living here, whether that's just the pass or, the finances or, we don't have a Target, this and that, if you're into Target. But I think generally speaking, we all move here and we fight to figure out how to stay here because it's such an amazing place. And so I think, already 30 seconds. And so I think that is just like that ethos as to is so exciting for our future. And yeah, I think that just opens up so many doors of what could be created here in the future. And so I'm going to say the best days are ahead of us because of all of us in this room and what we're going to do here.
Lauren. Microphone.
Can you just repeat the question one more time?
Yes.
It's long.
Basically, you can answer with one word and then a little bit of follow-up, but Vail's best days ahead of us or behind us?
Ahead of us. I'm an optimist at heart, but I do think the direction that we go depends on strong leadership on this council and community bonds. I have a lot of fond memories of what's behind us and first getting here, but as Sam mentioned, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to stay. And I think we're in a world where there's a lot of opportunity ahead of us. There's a lot of development, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of focus on our environment. And I really believe we can make the future better than the past. It'll be different, and someday we'll be talking about the good old days, but I am optimistic about our future.
Kevin.
Well, the past is just that, the past. And Vail was founded by a bunch of individuals that really had a vision and a dream and to make this town what it is today. And going forward, we're going to be the same way. We've got West Lions Head coming online pretty soon with Vail Resorts, a new partnership, hopefully, now that we resolved the East Vail nonsense. We'll have a new and improved Dobson Arena. We've got more housing coming online at Timber Ridge and in other areas. So everything before us is in front of us, and it's up to us, all of us, the people in the audience, the people on council, to make sure that we keep Vail where it needs to be, number one.
Barry.
Yeah, to build on that, I definitely think our best days are ahead of us. I mean, I think what made Vail so great in the beginning is when you listen to the old stories about the people that came here and made this place, that it was big ideas. It was people willing to take risk. It was people wanting to carve out something that was different and unique and cool and a place that they wanted to be. And most of us that moved here, except those of us who were fortunate enough to grow up here, we moved here in our 20s. This was a place you wanted to be, and you had to do anything you could do to make it stick because you wanted to be here and be a part of this. And now that we're building housing projects and creating community and fostering that idea, like this is still a place where you can come and have big ideas and reinvent this town. We are definitely headed for a bright future. We're only 60 years old. So
I think that's very young.
I think that we are very young, and I'm looking forward to the future. And we're built on a really wonderful, rich, amazing past of people who had fantastic big ideas. Like Vail, what's the quote, the entrepreneur quote that I've heard it told many different ways, but the CEO of Motorola used to say that Vail was the greatest entrepreneurial idea he'd ever seen. And I still feel like that. And I still feel like when I talk to people in town, they have big ideas about the community they want to create. So I'm stoked to see it.
Kim.
Well, I definitely have great memories of growing up here, but it wasn't all roses. It was a lot of tough work too. But I feel extremely, extremely grateful to have grown up here and to have seen the town evolve the way that it has. And one thing that maybe brought me here this evening was that when I was 20 years old, I was invited to a Vail visioning process called Vail Tomorrow. And I was asked, what do you want Vail's future to look like? And I think we need to continue to do that, to invite young people in, to invite everybody in to help us shape the future of Vail. So I think the future looks bright. the future looks great. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. You know, we can all work together and make this place better than it is. Every day, we're working hard at doing that.
Mr. Tucker.
I can firmly say that I'm an optimist about the future. I've decided to plant my flag here and build a business, and I believe this town has all the right pieces, and that now is the time to bring those things together so that the future is bright. You know, the housing that we're bringing online, the money that we're setting aside to build community after some years of maybe not fostering those things. I really think that the next couple of years are really the turning point for firmly concreting the idea that we are a town that is not just a tourist destination, but a community for those of us that have decided this place is the place to plant our flags. And so I'm excited for the future of Vail in that regard.
Cool. Thank you. Speaking of the future of Vail, just looking out at you guys, there seems to be quite a few people here this year that I've not seen at forums in the past. Please raise your hand if it's your first time at a forum. Look at that. Yeah, in person. So that's pretty impressive. Thank you so much for coming. The town's future is certainly bright if you guys keep staying involved. So we come to our first dollar bill question. And for the first one, Lauren, I will ask you, how will you divide up? Now, the math, you're not being graded on the math. You're more being graded on your priorities.
Mark, are you aware that the only thing you can buy for $1 in Vail is an hour of parking?
Actually, you get 2 free lunches in the summer.
So you want me to talk about how I would go about splitting it up?
Yes, so that's the entire budget. What are your priorities? How much of that dollar are you going to spend on each of your priorities?
Over the next year or 4 years?
4 years.
Okay. Because today I think I might save the dollar. So I think affordability of what we're doing in housing is not going to exist in the future, and that's been a priority. We need to see it through and ensure that we deliver on the buildings and the infrastructure that we've invested in, and that includes Dobson. There's also a ton of deferred maintenance in our town. Everywhere you look, we need money, right? But we really need to stick to the dollar, and I think I've read through our budget. I think the next step to answer this properly would be to spend some time with the staff and get their perspectives before I just decide on my own how to spend the dollar.
Of that dollar, what's the biggest share of that dollar going to be? We don't need to be super realistic. You know, obviously we need snow plowing.
We need to invest in, we need to invest in the projects we have ongoing. We need to be fiscally responsible and think about our reserves. We need to put money into our parking garage, and then a number of other buildings around town. And then we need to make sure that the community that we're building for, that we're supporting it through different efforts, obviously taking care of our guests.
Cool. Thank you. Oh, that's not for me, right? Okay. So this next question is going to be for former council members and current council members. So we have Sam, Kevin, Barry, Kim. Name over your time. So some of you have served 4 years, some 2, some 8, some 100,000 years. Name one vote that you're most proud of, but also one that you would take back if you could. And then after you say those, what did you maybe learn from both of those as far as your philosophy of governing? Let's start with Kim.
Yeah. So, I would say it would be the Booth Heights issue.
Positive or negative? That's the one you're proud of?
Both. No.
Okay.
That's the tension there, right? I am not proud of the way it all went down, but in the end, we were able to both protect the bighorn sheep herd and make headway on building 550 net new homes that are coming out of the ground now. So I think we accomplished both, but I don't really like the way it all, it all went for those 7 years.
So what did it teach you about governing? You learn any lessons from it?
I learned many lessons from that. Yeah, I think, communication from the very get-go, from the very beginning. And it was a difficult time because we did not have a town manager at that time. During the 8 years I was on council, half that time it seemed like we did not have a town manager. There were 3 turnovers during that time. So it was very difficult to make headway in terms of good communication between the town and Vail Resort. So I absolutely learned a lot from that experience.
Barry, same question.
One vote I'm really proud of that is the adage, the best time to plant a tree was 40 years ago, the second best time is today. The decisions to move forward on West Middle was challenging and scary and a huge investment, and it was our chance to do it. We had a council that was motivated to spend some money and take a risk like this town was built on and build some housing that we need. So no last place to maybe do that. I'm proud of what we did there. I think it was in line with what this town was built on.
Do you have a vote that keeps you up at night that you wish you didn't vote in that direction?
I had a little PTSD when Kim was talking because she absolutely hit the nail on the head that the Booth Heights decision, I don't know if you remember talking to me at that time, but I was in knots all the time right up until the last moment. And I was on the side that voted against it, which was, but we part of a 5-2 vote. And I don't know that taking my vote back is honest either. But, Kim, I think, shined a light really well on just exactly how difficult that is when you're trying to integrate with the community and represent what you're hearing as well as kind of following your own beliefs. That was, if there's one vote that I would ever want to go back and look through my diary on would I take it back, it would be that time. I mean, I'm proud of the way I voted, but that was a really interesting time to be on council.
Kevin?
Well, the one decision I'm most proud of was the Dow Junction bike path, when we finally got bicycles off the interstate and made a safe way for people to get down Valley on their bicycles. One that I'd take back, I don't think there is one that I'd take back, really. I always vote my conscience, I vote my heart, and, love me or not, I'm going to do what's right, what I think is right for the town of Vail.
Samantha?
Sorry, John. I feel like I'm in council afternoon sessions. Okay, so the vote I'm most proud of, I'm also incredibly proud of West Middle Creek Berry. That was like the most emotional council meeting I can remember. I think like 4 out of 7 of us cried because it was so intense. But just to do something different, I'm going to say my vote on moving forward with Dobson. That kind of seems like a no-brainer, but there were a lot of options for what we could have done with the $55 million of TIF money. And now that the plans are, it's happening, but when the plans were finalized, and working really hard to make sure that that is going to be an amazing community hockey rink, but also has the potential to host awesome events and concerts, and it's just going to add so much to this town, I think. And I really voiced that. That was important to me to make it clear that I hope to see Dobson as more of a community asset than just for hockey.
What about the opposite?
And then the opposite, it kind of goes the same. Same theme is, and this goes into what I learned, is to speaking about why I'm voting a certain way. So one vote, I do not regret it, but one I wish I had said more was about the EHU credits at Timber Ridge. I fundamentally disagree with them, but, and I didn't say why, I just voted no, and I wish I had explained more. And so I don't regret the vote, but I regret how I handled it.
Perfect. I know you don't really care, but the vote that keeps me up still at night from my 4 years was the fountain and fire voting $1.2 million to build that still just kills me. So, as nice as it is, maybe we should have done something else there. So, readiness. That's the next question. This is going to be a single question, and it just worked out this way. Lauren, I'm not picking on you. You will have plenty of time to relax at other points. But here's a question for you. Having not served on a town board or a council, but to be fair, you did apply for, I think it was the housing board. I do believe, me personally as a voter and a resident, I believe that town experience matters, but I am also a firm believer in bringing in outside experience, and you don't need to have sat on a board or been a town council member to be a great town council member in the future. There are quite a few council members who their first position within the town was as a council member. So, with that being said, what past project or leadership experience best shows that you're ready to make decisions at this level, and how did that position shape your approach to leadership in general?
These questions are so long.
I like to hear myself talk. I'm sorry.
Well, first of all, I understand why people value our local board experience. There's a dialogue that we have to understand, and I've been working on a lot of it. And just the process of how boards and committees works. If we don't understand how it works, it's very hard to be a leader in it. And I do think you can learn that through participation and observation as well. As far as big projects go, I was part of a team who was determined to launch the next generation of television. I counseled many people that I thought the way we were doing it was going to be a mistake. When we made the decision to move forward, we did it as a team. And when it was a disaster, I cleaned it up. And after that, we focused on the future and moving forward. We looked back on our lessons learned. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned through, I had a couple different big projects like that. You can't make these things personal. They feel personal, but we have to use a rational mind, thoughtful decisioning to move forward, or I think you'll burn out and it'll eat you alive.
Thank you. Okay, this next question is going to be for everybody. And it's a short one, so let's only give them 60 seconds, although it's a big question. What is the single biggest challenge facing Vail now? And what's the first concrete step you take within your first 100 days on council to address it? Dave Tucker on the TV.
This is a great question, and I'm forming a thought about it. I think the biggest crisis, the biggest thing facing Vail is deciding and concretely making steps to be a community. I think, as a quote I love from the founding of our country was, not long from now, men will shed these truths that to gain their freedoms and lose themselves in their toil for wealth. And I think Vail has gotten caught up in making money rather than focusing on building community. And so the concrete steps would be to ensure that the money that's going into the general fund from things like 2A are going to be spent wisely on helping buy down property so that locals can live here and be a part of a community. Without a varied and diverse group of people, from bussers and waiters to wealthy business owners, this town will be boring if it's just one or the other. And so I'm looking forward to taking steps towards that.
Sam.
I think our single biggest challenge is, think we have a lot of challenges ahead of us, which is exciting and why I'm here. But the biggest one I'm thinking of right now, for some reason, is what is our secret sauce, right? In the days of the epic pass, you know, you can go, if you live in California, you can go in one winter, you can go to Tahoe and then come to Vail and then come to this. Whereas when I grew up coming here, we just went to Vail for every vacation. That is like a change in culture into round skiing. And so I think Vail and our town, our economic development department, and our getting local businesses and employees all involved in making sure that we are all working hard to give the guests a great experience, so guests decide to come back here even though they don't have to. And that, I would say that is a big challenge.
Kim?
Okay, well, I see this as a short-term and a long-term. So short-term, I think making sure we have a great winter, that people are well-housed, and the businesses are running well, the marketing is working well, so all of the things that Sam has mentioned there. But we also have to think long-term in terms of how our seasonality is changing, ski seasons are getting shorter, and how we can diversify our businesses and create a great year-round economy.
Barry?
I think one of the greatest challenges facing Vail is truly like, what's our identity and what are our values? How are we going to carry that into the future? What's important to us as a town, and how can we all get pulling in the same direction when it comes to what environmental issues do we think that we can handle within our town and fix? How can we continue to be the great place that people want to come from all over the world and visit? Who is our target guest? Who is our community? I think that a lot of these conversations, and part of being council, is really dialing in. What is our identity? Who are we? How do we not get lost in the sea of sameness? How do we be uniquely Vail all the time?
Lauren?
And I was thinking about this as most urgent, not the biggest.
That's fine.
Is that, okay, because I think if it's one of the largest threats to our community, you know, I think we have to talk about environment. But then when I think about what's on the list of the agendas and what I've been following along on, is that we've been moving very quickly and making a lot of progress in building our community. But we've also had to put out an emergency ordinance to handle some of the changes in our town. There is a massive load of projects on the PEC's list. I'm sure Dave and others are working many more hours than normal. And I think it's a good time to take a pause and make sure that we have the policies and the rules that we need in place that protect and set us up well to succeed in the future. So I actually think that's one of the most urgent things that needs to get done, because I think it expires the end of this month, end of next month.
Kevin?
I really think we need to go back to our roots. When the town was founded, our town charter specifically laid out areas of work and concern for the people that started the town. And I think we need to have another visioning process, like Kim mentioned earlier, to sit down with everybody and say, hey, where are we heading? What are we doing? Where are we going? You know, yeah, we still want to be the best mountain resort, but we also want to make sure we ensure that community. And we've been doing a lot recently to do that, but we need to stay the course. We need to make sure that Vail is the number one special place for us to live, work, and recreate.
Thank you. So these have all been pretty in-depth questions. I also have, what's the opposite of in-depth? I have really shallow, no, Dave answered it first, right, Dave? Yeah. Yes, don't scare him. So I also have shallow, fun questions that will be just a couple of words. So I think it's time for one of those. You're all going to get the same question. They just one sentence answer. What is the most Vail thing you have ever done? Kevin?
Dropped a puck at the Yeti game.
Barry?
Snowshoe up on the north side of the highway to watch the fireworks on the 4th of July with my family.
Lauren?
New Year's Eve. Fourth
I,
yeah,
that
we wear
was
snowshoes.
impressive.
4th of July.
I would have liked to seen your entire family in snowshoes in July. That would.
I'm trying to think of something really Vail and not just something unique I did here. I think taking Christmas photos on the Christmas run with family and friends, every year, that is sort of really Vail. One of the crazy things was ski biking at night with like 25 other ski instructors. I think we went down the 9 line or something.
Sam, the most Vail thing you've ever done?
I don't think I could do it anymore, but probably monkey bars across the covered bridge.
Oh, very impressive. Dave?
Sang country roads in 7 different bars.
Nice. Kim?
I think we'd all like to imagine when the rope drops in the back bowls, in a fresh track down Morningside, but it would also be tubing down Gore Creek from East Vail.
Nice. Cool. Now we're going to get back to in-depth questions. This question is going to be just for 3 of you. Dave, you're going to answer it. Kim and Lauren. With new housing comes new community members and new demand for services such as the schools, after-school programs, summer camps, tea times, parking, tables at restaurants. How are you going to make sure that the town can absorb that growth while protecting quality of life? Kim?
I mean, we've got great infrastructure here. The town serves, an additional 32,000, people per day on a busy day. We just need to make sure that it's well-managed, well-run, and people can get access to it. So it's a management issue, really.
Dave?
Yeah, I'd echo that for sure. And I think part of it is making sure we don't erase some of the unique locals' experiences. But I think that it's sort of a problem that solves itself, in that you bring more people, especially in the service economy, all those services are only going to improve.
Lauren?
I think one of the things we need to be thinking about, because we hear a lot of complaints and concerns about affordability in general, are third spaces. So with an influx in our population, which is great, I'm not against it, I'm absolutely excited about it. We need neutral spaces that are affordable, that people can come together, have dialogue, and participate. And some of that will come through community events and community organizations, but I think with all the development going on and the potential for West Lions Head, there are some huge opportunities there. And we need to be thinking about, where are all these people going to go to the gym? Where are they going to be able to get coffee? Where can they come together and feel comfortable to go get dinner? And especially in West Vail, we've lost a lot of businesses on the other side of the highway. And I think, that's another area that's ripe for opportunity. But third spaces that build bonds for the community that we built the infrastructure for, is my answer.
Dave, you are up. You will be the only one answering this question. First of all, I just want to say, this is your 2nd time running, and you were not as successful as you would have wanted to be the first time, but instead of retreating and just going back to your life, you stayed involved. You applied for the Planning Environmental Commission. You were appointed to the PEC, and you are currently serving on it, where you are getting packets that might be 1,000 pages, and you're preparing for those meetings, and you're making incredibly strong, consequential decisions for the town. So I just want you to know I totally appreciate that. As part with taking your PC experience and having talked to you, you've talked about streamlining town the process of going through the town. Projects often get stuck in that process, sometimes for a good reason, sometimes not. What is the line between smart regulation and red tape?
Time. I think that as a town, we could change the way we interface with developers in the community over the next number of years, as we've already begun to see. Most of the development that's going to happen in our town is going to be infill. So it's going to be the tearing down of one building to build another. And with that comes the desire to build a bigger project than maybe the lot allows. And so to make this quick, I have some big ideas about streamlining this process so that before a builder spends $200,000 on a set of plans with an architect, they come in with a sketch and a receipt that they've communicated with their neighbors about the proposed project they want to build, so that we're not having these situations where builders are arguing for variances on very expensive plans they've built, but rather the idea of the building they want to build. I know this is sort of nerdy and in the weeds a bit, but having developers talk to the neighbors and come tell us in town that they've communicated to them weeks before they come before us, rather than 3 days before a meeting where somebody feels like reflexively they have to be against it because they had no time to talk about, digest, and come to grips with the fact that development will and be ongoing. We are going to continue to develop this town to make it better. But I think a lot of people reflexively are against things solely because of communication, size, and scope. Thanks.
And just so you know, the PC is still going on now, so you do have an excused absence as far as I'm concerned. So better to be here, I think, right now. Okay, the next dollar bill question. Sam?
I'm running on livability, vibrancy, and sustainability. So to keep it simple, I'd do 30, 30, and then this is completely inaccurate, but 10 cents for the admin and police and fire and all the other things that make the town run.
So
So
30.
30, 30, 30, livability, so housing, vibrancy, so economic development, and sustainability, environmental, would be my 3 priorities.
Cool. Okay. This question is also for you, Sam, and Lauren. It's a hypothetical question. So imagine that all of the smart minds that the town hires, both in staff and with consultants, start forecasting a significant drop in Vail's sales tax for next year. There are no forecasts with a significant drop. Just want you to know that. This is purely hypothetical. What would be your first move? Would you be raising taxes, cutting spending, investing? I don't want to give any other things, and why? So, budget pressure coming up for next year. Why don't you start, Sam?
I would bang on Carly, our director of finance's door first, and sit down with her. When we go through the budget with her or any big major project, she's what's our safety, liquidity, and yield?
In that order.
In that order, that's right. So I would sit down with her. She always gives us a good presentation on contingency plans if something like this were to happen. And so I know the town has a plan that I trust, because safety, liquidity, yield, in that order. And so I would start there. And then one thing I would try my hardest to not cut would be marketing. Luckily, that's in a separate taxing district, so hopefully it wouldn't be too affected. But I would try to keep marketing going because I do believe that we would still want to be trying our hardest to bring people here. And if it's happening to us, it's probably happening to other towns. And if Breck's cutting their spending on marketing and we don't cut ours, we'll probably retain some good market share and things are good.
Lauren.
I think Sam touched on one of it, but in our budget, it clearly tells us that each of our leaders in the staff has a recession plan in place. And so the first place to go is to the leaders of our departments to figure out what are the nice to haves and what are the must haves. And then I think we partner to relook at the budget based on what we think our sales will be. I think where I would probably spend the money depends on what's causing our sales to go down. I think, in a lot of our minds, we're afraid of where our economy's going as a whole. But if there's something that we did or something that's going on in our environment, if there's a particular cause that's reducing the amount of revenue we're seeing, then I think I would want to invest it in that to the best that we thought we could impact revenues. But yeah.
Thank you. So just to let you know, I was very careful in writing these questions. Everybody is being asked the same amount of questions. It's just happening at different times throughout. Just everyone is being asked 10 questions, which leads us to Barry Davis. Barry Davis. Vail's brand as a luxury destination can sometimes alienate locals. Can we truly be both a world-class resort and a hometown, or does one inevitably lose?
You can't have one without the other. A world-class resort requires world-class people. You have to have people in your bars, restaurants, ski shops that have stake here. So the only way we're going to be a world-class resort is if we continue to invest in the infrastructure of world-class people living here.
Done. Cool. I hope I have enough questions. Dave Tucker. In the TV interview that we did, that a good chunk of the audience has already seen, and supposedly quite a few other people have been watching it, when I asked you, when you are voting on council, you said you would represent your friends and your peers. Please expand on that. Who is that group, and how do you make sure that you are casting votes that actually represents all of the interests and the stakeholders in town, and not just your small circle of friends?
I think that with any large decision, first thing you want to do is talk to people about what their thoughts are. And I'd say it's pretty easy to gauge, not pretty easy. It's easier to go around and get the consensus of what town is feeling. But I have some trusted people I like to ask their opinions of because, like myself, they like to stay up to date on what's going on. And so my answer in that video was largely based on that I have friends that are business owners in town. I'm a business owner. I'm in my early 40s. I came here sort of accidentally and fell in love with this place and have decided to build a business. I've moved from being a musician and an artist to being a business owner, a remodeler, and an employer, which is something I never thought I'd be in my life. So to stand at this sort of new beginning of my life in my early 40s and my second act, I look at other people that have moved to this town as their second act, as my peers and friends. And, in the same way that we all, I think, recognize that building community requires those world-class people, that I have some pretty world-class friends. And whether they're in restaurants, the building trades, retail owners, and otherwise, those are the people I turn to. And so looking forward to being on council and casting votes on large decisions, those are the people I would turn to first in terms of phone calls. And then otherwise, any constituent that wanted to reach out and talk, I always have time for that. And I've done that with PEC and otherwise.
Cool. Former Mayor Langmaid, your turn. So, you have built a reputation in town on climate leadership. If new housing goals collide with sustainability goals, which side is going to win and why? So specifically, should the town enforce green building rules on workforce housing that make it up to 20% more expensive when we don't apply those same rules to free market homes, where a lot of the free market homes that are built could certainly afford that additional cost?
Well, that's a topic I was just talking to somebody about today. And it's unfortunate that some of the technologies that support full electrification are more expensive at this point in time. In the future, they won't be. So I would say that we need to build the housing. We need to continue with that. And hopefully we're doing it responsibly so that when the time comes that we can shift out, then we will as soon as possible, so that we're not investing in infrastructure that is taking us in the wrong direction for too far in the coming decades. So we don't want to be installing things now just to save a buck, because we're going to have to take it out sooner and it'll cost us more money later at that point in time. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
about the free market side of that? Bill, do you see any situation where we might start requiring green building codes on free market homes?
I think that we have adopted the most up-to-date building codes at this time, and they do require things that are required amongst, across many communities. We've added a few things to those, like I was just mentioning, so that they're future-ready.
Cool. Thank you. My next shallow, not in-depth question for everyone. I'm going to pick this one. Who in town do you often disagree with, but still respect? Kim.
Do I often disagree with? Oh, that's a tough one. Who do I disagree with?
Yeah.
Let's
I mean, there's probably no one that you disagree with 100% of the time. I have a lot of people I disagree with 100% of the time, but not you.
I disagreed with you once, and I still respect you.
Well, thank you. That was the answer I was shooting for. Mr. Tucker.
That is a really difficult question. I'm not usually at a loss for words. I am at a loss for words.
So if you're having a tough time answering, this could go for you too. So Kim's already answered, but you could also, if you don't want to name a name like me, you can give a hypothetical type of person, if that makes it easier.
All right, I usually disagree with developers, even as a builder,
But you still respect them.
but I still respect them.
Okay. Barry.
I got the opposite problem, Dave. I have, I think you all know that I like to answer every email, answer every phone call, talk to everyone. Just today, I had a spirited discussion in the village with my friend Jeff. I want to give an honorable mention to Diana Donovan, who has often given me an education at the expense of my ignorance. But I got to say, the person that I disagree with the most and respect the most is probably Travis. And Travis Coggin, our current mayor, he and I often go into the Monday mayor meetings really opposed about how to approach an issue. And Travis has a certain confidence in his own opinion that can be fun to argue with. But what I really like about it is we do go into things opposed, and we come out of those meetings on Mondays aligned 99% of the time. So he's kind of my favorite person to argue with.
Kevin.
My brother.
Lauren.
I have a particular person in mind, but I'm not going to name them. But it's really anyone that comes up and says, this place has gone to hell. It's horrible. Vail isn't anything anymore. And I think I don't have such a pessimistic approach. I'd rather have someone say, I think this is a problem that used to be better, and we can fix it.
Sam.
Okay, in honor of keeping it light and shallow, I'm going to say Chicken Man. Because that guy has some crazy ideas. But man, do I love and respect that he shows up pretty much every other Tuesday at 6 p.m. with something for us.
Cool. Barry, it is time for you to break up that dollar.
You said you wanted creativity, so I am going to use some of that today. We're going to start this next year, 4 years on council with a strategic planning. We're going to come out of that strategic planning session with some things that we feel are accomplishable as a team. And I'm visioning that two things that are going to come out of that, two things that are important, are an achievable environmental goal, like we're repairing some health on the health of Gourd Creek, which I think is important to everybody that lives in Vail and cares about what makes Vail so great. And the other thing is accessibility and affordability of homes. But I'm going to take it one step further. Assuming you have $1 in your pocket, Mark, I'm going to be looking for 7 hands that we could move forward with these initiatives. Because this dollar is nothing if it's just me. But if the 7 of us can come out of our strategic planning and agree that this is what's most important to town, you know, can I get 7 hands that I want to spend $350 on the creek and I want to spend $350 on access to housing?
Very creative. Cool.
I just need 4 hands.
Next question is going to be for Sam and Dave Tucker. I call this question gatekeepers versus guardianship. Let's talk about the tension between gatekeeping and guardianship. Gatekeepers are people who want to prevent change. Guardians cultivate change while protecting what needs to be protected. There are community members who fit both of these categories and fall along that spectrum. And I guarantee you, if elected, you will hear from them. Often. Loudly. Where do you fall on that spectrum, and how will you make sure you're fairly representing those on the other side?
Can you define gatekeeping and guardianship in your words again?
Yes, so gatekeepers are those that don't want to make any changes. The guardians want to put maybe fences around change, but they protect what needs to be protected, but they're willing to talk about change.
And where you're asking, where do I fall?
Where do you fall, and how will you make sure that you are fairly representing the people on the other side of the spectrum from where you fall?
Okay. So I for sure fall on the guardianship side. You know, having started 2 businesses in the village, one that used to be, I think, the Hong Kong Cafe, I wasn't there, and then the other one was the Daily Grind. Do you know what I mean? I'm all about change, but I think you can create change in a way that still promotes and protects and enhances our local culture, which I believe both of my businesses have done. That's 2 arrows in root and flower today. So I would say I definitely fall on the guardianship side. In terms of how I would work with gatekeepers, I mean, I think one of the most interesting things about being on council is how much, you know, your opinion is only your opinion, and how much you really have to take into account all of the other opinions that you hear. And I take a lot of meetings that going into, I'm not necessarily sure we're going to agree on anything. But I come out of it usually with a little bit of, oh, that was a good thought. And so I think just being open to listening to everyone, you know, Barry referenced Diana Donovan earlier. I think that is a great example. And I talk to her a lot, and her stories are very interesting, and I think you need to hear both sides in order to move forward and protect Vail's past, but also be future oriented. Sorry.
Dave.
I'll start by saying when I was in third grade, my teacher sent a note home to my mother that said, Dave's great, but he needs to stop getting out of his seat to tell us how we can do things differently. I have always been an agent of change, and will continue to be that person. I think if I draw on my time on PEC over the last year and a half, where that is quite the dichotomy of gatekeepers and guardians, depending on the roles, depending on the project, depending on whose opinions are on display on the commission or who's in front of us at the table. Good ideas are good ideas, and I think being able to present a guardian or a gatekeeper, with a good idea, persistence sometimes wins that out. A better idea sometimes wins that out, or just a cup of coffee. And so I think we have no choice but to face this future in Vail as guardians, respecting the past that has brought us to where we are, and moving forward with brighter ideas than maybe some of the ones that the gatekeepers want to hold is going to be necessary to make sure we have a vibrant community, more so than just a town. And so, solid examples, it's really sitting down with somebody, having the cup of coffee and saying, what's the problem? What do you see as the problem? And how do we get to where you can become a yes, even if it's a maybe of a yes?
Rapid fire question. When is the last time you changed your mind on a local issue? Kevin.
Boy, the last time I changed my mind, I can't think of it.
Okay. Barry.
I changed my mind several times when we were talking about what we were going to do about Rodeo Rink and Eagle. I went all over the place, we're building Dobson, we're investing all these dollars in our community. That community, our ICE community, needed help down Valley. We said it like going back and forth. I went back and forth several times in that before ultimately deciding helping Eagle build Rodeo Rink was in our best interest, as a partner in the Valley. And I'm happy with the decision we made.
Lauren.
It's the single-use plastics. I initially felt pretty supportive of it. And after talking to local business owners and thinking about the implementation and what was really realistic from a rule like that today, without some more forethought, I don't think we're there yet.
Kim.
Well, it was just last Thursday night at the Ski Museum when John LeConte was launching his new book about Lord Gore. I was one of the people who thought maybe someday we should change the name of the Gore Range because this guy, Lord Gore, was such an evildoer. But I learned so many new things about him from John, and now we have this reference source, so he definitely changed my mind. I don't want to change the name of the range.
Sam.
Fire Free 5. That morning before that council meeting, I was for sure like, no, we can't do Fire Free 5, this and that. And then after hearing from community members who showed up, so y'all should show up if you have an opinion on something, and also our amazing wildfire team, and then also hearing that the wildfire team was planning, or the fire department had exemptions, was going to accept exemptions, which God bless them, because that's going to be a lot. I changed my mind on it and was pro Fire Free 5. We have not decided on that, by the way. I don't want to make it sound like that's going forward. They are bringing forward an ordinance in the near future, so stay tuned.
David. Dave Tuck.
Contracting test for contractors in town, which coincided with me starting a business, which meant I had to take a 4-hour exam, and I was all against this. But after being involved in local building, I can tell you, I think it's one of the most wonderful things that the town council has decided to do.
Okay. This next question, Lauren and Kevin. We'll go with Kevin first. Should Vail spend public money on housing outside of the town limits? if it helps meet our workforce goals. And if that's acceptable, what about spending conservation dollars outside of town limits to protect critical wildlife corridors and habitat?
Housing, yes. Conservation, no.
Lauren?
I would say housing, yes, once we hit a point where there's nowhere to invest in town, or we can't find a product, for like small families, that is still a gap we have. If we have to go outside of town because we can't find somewhere to build that, basically if there's no other option than going out of town. I also think childcare is an area, it's not housing, but childcare out of town is going to be necessary to support our going needs. And on conservation, again, I think someday, I hope we have enough and we're in such a great position as a town, we can be spending for bigger impact.
Hey, Mark, I got to go back on that conservation because we do need a wildlife overpass on Vail Pass over I-70.
Technically, that's outside of town.
Yeah, right. And so
Yep, it's okay. Oh, did you want to change your mind, or?
When I think of town, I think of some of the areas in Westville that are technically not town too.
That, we're not going to get into.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. So this question is for Kim and Kevin. If the town could fund either a major green infrastructure project or a new child care center, but not both, which gets priority and why? Kim?
The Green Child Care Center.
That seems to, I did write, you see, I wrote no hedging, and then I didn't read it out. So had I written it out, I wouldn't accept that answer, but now I'll accept it. Kevin?
without a doubt, the child care center.
Cool. Rapid fire. What is a policy from another mountain town that you would copy tomorrow if you can? Kim?
I have not been thinking about that lately.
You want us to come back to you?
Yes, please.
Barry?
The town of Aspen has something called a chief innovation officer, which helps the council.
Chief what? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Chief innovation officer. Sorry, my mom told me I didn't enunciate very well in our podcast either, so I apologize.
I think of myself as your mom sometimes.
So there's this role that another municipality has that helps the council understand the cascading effects and potentially unintended consequences of their decisions and what it sets us up for in the future. I think this position would be really fantastic because a lot of the times, as much as we try to gather information and try to have all the information we can before a decision, we often don't have as good a vision as we could for something following up a decision. So as I learned about that position, I want one.
Kevin?
I wish we had something like Ullerfest over in Breckenridge so that we could have a midwinter celebration of all that's Vail.
Dave Tucker?
I'm of two minds on this, but I'd say the last one I saw that I really liked was the Lake Tahoe stainless steel water bottles branded with facts about conservation in the Gore Creek.
Lauren?
I'm going to hit on it. The short-term rental tax, I would have preferred to see us do a tiered model for self-managed properties in town. I also would have liked it to go into effect in off-season or have a carve-out, and, Aspen did both of those.
Sam?
Also, Aspen, and I don't think it exists anymore, but we're Vail, we could do it better. They had a thing called a next-gen board, which basically the idea was it was a bunch of young people who sat on a board and they didn't really have any major responsibilities, but they came with ideas and creative solutions and this and that, and I think we could expand on it, having them I've always thought it'd be cool if our next gen board went to all the different, like, sat on Dave's PEC and then reported back to the next gen board, and so they had like a little homework and got to learn of what everyone does. I thought that would be a really cool idea.
Kim?
Okay, this would be the mythical town or the Vail of the future, which has managed to eliminate pesticide use from going into Gore Creek.
Okay. Kevin, it is your turn to break up that dollar.
Thanks, Mark. The majority of the town budget is for municipal services, all the people that make this town great. But we need to be a lean, mean fighting machine, and we need to take a look at, do we really need as many employees? When I first got on council, we averaged about 200 full-time employees. We're up over 250 now, with a lot of part-timers too, and, you know, you wonder sometimes when you see state workers, but I don't often see city workers just hanging around or seeing 8 or 10 people on a job site, but do we really need as many employees as we have, or can we outsource some of those responsibilities and save the town a few bucks with the salaries and benefits taking up the majority of the budget?
What else would you do with the remaining?
I'd make sure we got that rec center for all the people that are going to be living in town, because that's the most glaring need that I see in our community.
This next question is for former council members again. Each of you who served before, at one time or another, was probably a lone vote. And if not a lone vote, it was a lonely vote. Walk us through that moment. How does that happen? And was it because you couldn't bring others along that you tried to? Or because you believed that you were right and the rest of the council was wrong? Or because you wanted to make a statement vote? Looking back, would you have handled that time differently? Kevin.
I've been a single vote on a number of occasions, and when I first got on council, I didn't really take the time to explain why my no vote was a no vote. But the majority of the time is that when people come to us with their issues and take all that time and they're invested in it, I don't think that we should be a 7-0 all the time, saying, yeah, this is the way we're going. A lot of times I want that person or that group to know that, hey, you were heard, even though the majority disagreed with me. I want to make sure that you know that we value your time, your input, and your willingness to work in our community. And I want to make sure that you know that, hey, we respect you for what you did, even if you didn't get the outcome you deserved.
So a statement vote.
Statement vote.
Barry.
I have been on the losing side of votes, big ones, and I think every time I voted, I have not made a statement vote. I think every time I voted, representing what I thought was the right decision.
Kim.
I don't remember a lone no vote, but I did have one that was more process-oriented, and this is when we were in a budget planning period, and I didn't think the town staff was working hard enough on some of their capital decisions. So I might have voiced my no vote then.
Sam.
I would say, like Barry, I vote based on how I feel, not to make a statement, and because I truly think that's what I believe. One thing I think, though, that is important, now having been on council for 2 years, is when you are the no vote, let's keep using my theme of that Timber Ridge credit, AHU credit, we're a team, right? And so the team was moving forward with the Timber Ridge credits. And so once I make the vote, then how do you move forward, making sure that whatever program, even though you disagreed with it to begin with, ends up being the best it can possibly be and somewhat represents your values and beliefs and ends up being the best for the town. I think that's important to get on the team, even if you are the sole no vote to begin with.
Kevin, a question for you, and only you. You've spent many years on council, and you've seen patterns and have a sense of history that newer members of council are not necessarily able to see. What's one specific insight from that experience that newer council members might miss? And then I have a follow-up question.
Okay. When I first got on council, I had the good fortune to sit next to Paul Johnston, former mayor and all-around great guy. And Paul's the one who counseled me to show up, make my vote, and go home. Don't take it personally, but make sure you stay involved and stay committed to the town. But it's not the end of the world should things not go the way you want to see.
So the opposite of that question is, with all of that history, with having spent years on the council, how would you ensure that you bring new ideas to the table instead of relying on what has worked before?
When we have our visioning process and the community starts to tell us what's important to them, then we need to get down and get after it.
Sam, as a council person, you supported Timber Ridge. As a small business owner, you did not purchase a unit. Why?
I am a fiscally conservative person. I've always said one loan at a time. And while I strive to be Johannes Fessler and Matt Morgan and have businesses in town for going on 40 plus years, I am not that person today. And we still have a pretty giant loan on our Bridge Street location, and my priority is paying that off. And once that's done, then I think Timber Ridge is a great project. I think there's going to be other let's pray that loan is over in 5 years. And then we'll see where I go from there. But when the Timber Ridge opportunity came up, it was not the right time for me and my business. But I think it's a great project, and I'm very excited to see how awesome it looks.
It's going really fast.
I know, it's so cool.
Pretty crazy. In a good way, crazy. Rapid fire question. If you could sit down for coffee with any past Vail Council member, who would it be and what would you ask them? Kim. You can't answer me again because you already did that one.
Okay, well, it would have to be my grandfather. And
What year did he serve on council?
he was on the first town council, and a couple years thereafter. He was an amazing man. He helped start the fire department. And I would just want to hear from him. I didn't, he passed when I was younger, so I didn't get to hear a lot of his stories and what motivated him to be so involved in helping to create the town. So I think that would be the first one, but I'm sure there are many, many others that I would like to talk with.
Barry.
Rod Slifer, as a person who was involved in the planning from the earlies and got to see so much in Vail and also had a really gentle touch and a great way of connecting with everyone in town, I'd want to have lunch with Rod Slifer and ask him what I'm missing, what I could be better, what the town might be missing. I just really always appreciated the opportunity to hear his perspective, and I'd like it again.
Kevin.
Mike Cassiopo. Mike was a political gadfly, but he was an all-around good person, and he cared about this town, and he brought up issues that maybe people didn't want to hear about, but he was willing to do it, and I'd like to chat with him again because I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him.
Lauren.
Well, initially I thought I've been trying to get to have coffee with every council member I can find over the last few weeks and months. And I'm a little over caffeinated because of that. But I'm going to change my answer to Kim's dad or grandfather. Yeah. And I think the question I would say, assuming it was, is what were you guys thinking?
Sam.
I'm trying to think of a a PC answer, to be totally honest, but to just be totally honest, I would honestly say Kim Langmaid. And I would just die to know what happened in the executive sessions during the Booth Heights debacle. That is my answer.
Dave Tucker.
I'm struggling with this one. I haven't been in town long enough or known about Vail long enough to. I do know characters from the past of Vail, and I don't know if he was a council member, but after learning about him, I would love to have coffee with Packy Walker. And just the stories I've heard about the crazy stuff that went down around town that he may or may not have instigated, I would love to know more about that.
Okay, Dave, it is your turn for the dollar bill. And while you can't hold it, you can look at it and tell us how you would spend the town's budget. What are your priorities? Oh, it wasn't okay. I thought you were running away.
Mark, you got it through the TV. Let's see. There's a lot of things. I think to dig back into a couple town departments. I think the environmental department needs an environmental officer for compliance. So I would definitely peg up some of the dollar there, maybe 15 cents, not 15 cents. That's a lot of money. Let's not go with numbers. Environmental officer for compliance for sand oil separators. I think the community development office could use some funds in terms of making sure we can hold on to plan reviewers and inspectors so that the progress in this town moves forward. I think another big area would be, there's a lot. I have a lot on this list that I've been making. Housing buy downs. I think, we need to reassess some of our housing programs and reassess tools that were developed years ago. I think have run their course, and some better ideas are out there in terms of how we can solve some of this community building purchases for people that want to plant their flags here and don't have the resources of some others. So let's see, that's community development. And then overhauling, having some money to put aside for sessions to workshop with council and others within town. This idea I have about changing our development standards to a sketch-based model so that we are seeing a project before it's almost fully realized, maybe not the shovel's not in the ground, but that we're seeing projects come from big development in a much more infant stage before there's all this money being spent and pleading about special variances and allowances, so that we see our community grow physically in a proportional way and not just because somebody has a bigger stack and they want what they want from our town.
Cool. Thank you.
And then obviously I think just one last thing, our town does run because of the public works and all the rest of it. And thank you. If you're cutting me off.
Kim and Barry for this one. 4 to 3 votes happen from time to time. If they start happening more frequently, what does that tell you about the town and the council? Whether you're on the 4 side or the 3 side, how do you work to change someone else's mind? And what would it take to change your mind? Kim.
If there's a pattern of always voting 4-3, it means that the community is divided on an issue, and that there are 3 council members that are on one side and 4 on the other, and this is a really tough situation to be in. The best thing you can do is really listen, ask a lot of questions, spend a lot of time trying to understand, and involve the community in coming up with a solution that will get us to be more unified in the long run.
Is there a situation where you see someone could potentially change your mind depending on
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
How so? What would it take to change your mind?
Learning something new. I mean, there's always new information that is available. We do the best we can with the data that's provided and the input we get, but things are changing. Things change all the time, so I do keep an open mind.
Barry, what about you?
I think a 4-3 vote is a good indicator that your council is not committed to collaborating and working together. The past 2 years, we have not had a lot of 4-3 votes, and I think maybe to the people on the outside that looks like, oh, they all think the same way, but that discounts really heavily how much time we spend talking to each other, and whether that's going to lunch together or as a council really trying to, all of us going out for a drink after a meeting or taking runs together on the hill. Like, this council really communicates really well together. And when you do that, the changing your mind stuff isn't as black and white or binary. It's more subtle because you are having a conversation, you are learning, you are finding where the middle ground on making the best decision for Vail is. I think a 4-3 vote shows a council divided or a council not collaborating more than anything.
This next question is for Barry and Dave. You hear a lot of talk about collaboration. Give a real-world example when compromise actually made the decision worse. Barry.
Parking. So Vail's current parking system, and I, no disrespect to the parking task force, thank you. But this is a tube that has been patched so many times, it continues to be patches. This is a horse built by committee that becomes a camel. If we really, we cannot continue to just, and it's confusing and it's expensive and no one knows what days are what days. In my opinion, if we really wanted to make a bold choice on parking, it is no longer time to collaborate. It is time to start with a clean slate.
Dave Tucker.
This is a tough one to have a concrete answer for in terms of governance, but I'd say in terms of building projects, compromises made things worse when everybody didn't understand what was going on. And pretty much anytime a client makes a decision I don't like, it's because I haven't explained myself well enough. Not to make them believe exactly what I want to see out of their project, but that through that compromise, you end up with a product that's not as good because everybody's not talking. And so I think that, sitting down and talking through something and making sure everybody's clear about the details really can make the difference so that compromise doesn't become the end of something.
Okay, it is time for one more rapid fire question. What local issue do people in town over-dramatize the most? Sam.
Parking.
Lauren.
I think I agree on parking.
Kevin.
Without a doubt, parking.
I don't know if it's come up tonight at all, but parking seems to be something that everyone has an opinion on.
Definitely parking.
Dave, can you think?
That was the first thing I thought of. And then Sam said it, and I'm last. I can't think of another thing that it's one of those issues that our rumor mill works so great. And before the truth has gotten around town, everybody's decided whatever decision is terrible. And parking.
Perfect. Kim, it is your turn to break up a dollar bill.
Okay, this is a tough one. I know the budget, this year, 132 million in revenues, and it's all dedicated to certain things, and we've got a lot of, debt to take care of. But if everything just goes beautifully, I would take a third of this dollar and I would dedicate it to affordability in terms of the housing and stop the bleeding of losing our local homes in the neighborhoods and re-envision the Vail Indeed program so that the half of us in this room who one day are going to sell our homes can ensure that it goes to a local full-time resident here. The other thing is focusing on the amenities like the recreation center that we've been talking about, gathering spaces, making our quality of life that much better. And then the third part is really innovation and planning for the future. How can we really set ourselves apart from other great places?
Okay, that concludes my questions, but we have audience questions. We are approaching the end of the evening, but still plenty more time in your campaign. So let me just ask a couple of audience questions, and then I have the one final question for you guys. What are some of your ideas on making Vail more affordable? Now, I'm going to take liberties with that question. I want to hear some specifics, not generalities about making it more affordable. Let's get specific, and we'll start with Kevin. Or if you don't think it should be made more affordable, you can answer that way as well.
You know, the affordability, all of us have struggled to live here at one point or another. I mean, none of us came here with $1 million and just settled right in. And the main thing for me would be, you know, affordability-wise, let's just make it, what can we do to get an exercise facility in this town and make it work for everybody? And, you know, if that needs, the rec district will run it for us. They've said that, but how do we find the money and how do we find the willpower to get this done so that all of us can not have to go down Valley or go out to East Vail or pay exorbitant fees to a health club? How can we do that?
Barry.
Yeah, I think Kevin's touching on something really important, that affordable is a moving target, right? Like in Vail, we are in a place that is an expensive place to live. And as someone who moved here where everything was not affordable, right? You've heard about my ketchup and hot water and creamer tomato soup I used to make my first winter here because that's what I could afford. But I think accessibility is the right answer. And so while Indeed was a brilliant, wonderful project or idea that was created, and we've kind of seen the arc of that because of affordability, I think the way for us to become a player in accessibility is with a dedicated funding source to now change the products that we're offering to be able to compete in the marketplace in real estate as a town, acquire a piece of real estate, and then whether that's something that we can then resell to someone who lives here at a lower price for a deed restriction. I think that's our best weapon right now.
Kim.
Oh, yeah. So I think housing is definitely part of the affordability equation, and building off of models like the recent Habitat for Humanity partnership with Eagle County, Town of Vail, to make several units more affordable, I think is a good way to go. So continuing to do some of those efforts. Childcare, supporting initiatives for childcare. You know, when I talk to my friends, those are the two things. It's rent and it's childcare. And then thirdly, you know, a fun thing that might not get us too far, but it could help is working with local businesses to bring back sort of like the Vail Bucks kind of thing where you can, you know, it's order like a gift card or something where you can, town can invest in those and give them out to people. So you can get a cheaper dinner or whatnot.
Dave.
Yeah, I think all three of you previous to me, all of those thoughts have been rattling around my head. Some sort of Vail locals card, as you're sort of talking about, Kim, and then Barry, the idea that we do need to be innovative and nimble in our reaction to external market forces. You know, the national economy and the international economy are not in the favor of making this town affordable. And over the next couple of years, we're going to be seeing the feeling that our town is not affordable for locals, even if there are some bright spots. So what can the town offer to locals to help with that stopgap? You know, childcare is a big part of it. I'm sick of seeing friends move away because they have a kid and they can't get childcare, and we've lost two brilliant people and their child from this town. So housing is huge. And housing, rec center, the feeling that we are a community, I think will assuage some of the cost. because if we are a community and you feel like you're participating in something bigger than yourself, it changes the cost structure a bit.
Samantha.
I agree with what everyone has said, but to say something different, I've always thought there are two sides of the affordability coin in terms of, there's the housing supply that we need, that hopefully having more supply will naturally drive down the price of it. But I also believe that giving people opportunities to make more money makes life more affordable. And town is trying to do that. I mean, it's a super small example, but we just opened up an opportunity at the Vail Transportation Center of a cafe for a local business to go in there. And I've seen that happen before my eyes with my business partner, Lindsay. She was the manager at Yeti's, and now she owns a house in Intermountain 8 years later because of the success we've had at Two Arrows. That creating more opportunities for locals to succeed here is another awesome way to make life more affordable, in addition to all these other financial tools we have.
Lauren.
I'm going to try to give details because it gets extra points. So on housing, I've talked to Steve Lindstrom about this. I don't know if he agrees with me, but I'm a big fan of the price cap deed restrictions, because when people talk about affordable housing in our town, there's a lot of people my age that don't understand Indeed, and they only reference lotteries. And so I think when you look at the financing that you guys did with Habitat, and you look at the properties that are price capped, people still feel those are affordable. So I think that's one area to address affordability. Childcare, I think we should continue to prioritize our locals. I think it's the Vail Rec District programs in the summer that have done that, but I think we need more. And I think, the partnership between community organizations and independent accessible businesses. I have been recently playing Mahjong, and I think that is a great example of a community group that's bringing our locals into our businesses in a comfortable setting so that we have our dollars flowing within our community and not just out of it. So those are some ideas.
I want to apologize to the audience that we're not going to be able to get to more questions. We're approaching the very end, and we have one more. But as Ali said earlier, questions that are not asked from the audience will be sent to all the candidates for written answers, and then those will get posted. I want to once again thank you all for coming. It's so important. It's one of the great things about Vail is just how engaged our citizens are. When I was on council, I couldn't go to City Market for less than 25 minutes because if you weren't at the council meeting, you were watching it on TV. And in all those years, it never was rude. It was always just a really great, engaging conversation. So it was pretty wonderful. So thank you. Thanks to the VCBA, the Vail Chamber and Business Association. Thank you to the Vail Board of Realtors. High Five, Access Media, 40 years of informing the community. Be sure to check out the interviews, if you haven't already, that are on High Five. This will also be posted there within the next few days. Ballots have gone out. You might have received them, not yesterday was Sunday, today or tomorrow. I would imagine that any of these candidates would be happy to talk to you as an individual if you have additional questions. So thank you again. Thanks for grazing Fox as well. So a very simple question that you'll have 90 seconds to answer. It's for all of you, and we'll start with Dave, and we'll come back this way. Why you?
Why me? When I started this process 2.5 years ago, or 26 months ago, my whole point for getting involved was that a lot of people in town on Bridge Street, otherwise the service people, the younger generations, if you will, have a lot to say, and we're complaining a lot, and I decided that I would get involved. And if only to show them that it's possible. And through that, I then got involved with PEC and have learned a lot about how town staff and the culture around town hall works and the processes surrounding building a consensus and getting to a reasonable answer and goal about tough things, about town code, about etc. So why me? I think I'm a good candidate for council because I keep my finger on the pulse of my friends and those that aren't my friends, even people I talk to in bars. I go out. And if anything, my candidacy and my hopeful election is to just promote the idea of involvement in civics. We live in a country where we have a choice, and that starts at the local level, and here we are. So I think I'm a good candidate for those reasons. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on Zoom. I'm glad we were able to accommodate that. Kim, why you?
And I'm sorry I couldn't change my plans.
Yep. Understood.
Well, my main motivation is to continue the momentum in building a strong and healthy community. And after 8 years, I thought, whew, serving on council, I'd had enough. So the first year was a great break. But the second year, I thought, I need to continue. I have learned so much during those past 8 years that I want to build upon that and do a better job than I did before. We had an incredible 8 years. We had the turnover of the town manager 3 times. We had COVID. We had the Booth Heights controversy. So many things. So I just feel like I learned so much and can do a great job in bringing that experience forward. And I also just want to say that we're a can-do community, and I want to be part of that can-do culture, that we can accomplish great things when we work together.
Why you, Barry?
I think a lot of it comes with the perspective I've gained over the last few years. And after my first 2 years of council, I thought I knew what I was talking about, and then I got to become mayor pro tem, and I learned that I did not know what I was talking about my first 2 years on council. The last 2 years have been incredibly educational, getting a much better look at everything we do in town and how our town works. As a community member, I'm raising a family here. I've been a small business owner. I've made a career change while being here and gone to work in mental health in our community. I feel like in the community, I am a natural builder of community. I am collaborative. I am creative. I have also in the past 2 and 4 years been part of the team that put some really big initiatives coming together, seeing these projects come out of the ground. I want to see them come through. I want to be a part of the conversation in West Lions Head that we started in the past 2 years. And I think I've demonstrated my commitment to the organizational integrity and the belief of town first with some of the votes I've had. Tonight, a lot of the things you said about remembering the Booth Heights thing, the first thing I did as mayor pro tem was the council previously voted to condemn the property in East Vail. And that was entrusted partially to me, someone who's one of the no votes. And respecting the previous council and respecting that vote and doing what I thought was the best for town, moving that forward, I think I've demonstrated that I have the ability to continue to be a leader in this town.
Kevin.
I've been fortunate enough to serve on council on a number of occasions, and I think the reason I keep getting back is because I'm accessible. I'm on the bus pretty much every day. I see people in town when I'm walking around working. But to me, the most important will be the West Lions Head. I was on the council when we voted for and approved Evervale back in the day and gave the Ski Corporation 10 years to get that project through, and nothing happened. But I know that the council back then was real concerned about Gore Creek, Red Sandstone Creek, housing and parking. And all of those elements, protecting the creek and making sure we get more housing for employees and that we get more parking in town for people, is all part of that West Lions Head proposal. And I want to be there to make sure that we remember what we were concerned about back then in 2010 and keep it moving forward into the future.
Lauren, why you?
I mean, I've said it a bunch tonight, but, I'd like to see you guys invest in our future leadership. We talk about the future a lot. And I think the next generation of leaders having an opportunity to work with some of the council that remains up there for the next couple years and learn from them, I think that's important in handing down the baton and developing leaders to take us into the future. I'm active in our community. I'm probably on my bike more than the bus in the summer, but I get involved and I'm out there and I'm approachable and accessible. And whether I'm working on trails or volunteering or out to dinner with friends, like I'm here, I'm around. And then, you know, my background is very different from a lot of our council's background. I have extensive experience in leadership and in business, whether it's managing budgets, designing strategies, building teams, thinking about head counts of departments. I've done a lot of that, and I think that my experience both complements and strengthens our council as we approach the big projects that Kevin mentioned when we think about negotiations or potential litigation from some of the items on the ballot. Any of those things, like, I'm very well suited to handle that, and so I would love your vote.
Sam.
Why me? Besides having 2 years, been on council for 2 years and learning so much, like the other former council members have said, the learning curve is wild. I think that Vail is a great town, and Vail deserves experienced and balanced leadership, and the people of this town deserve representation. And, like, I was just writing it down, you know, like, I'm the only woman currently. It would be really nice to get another woman up there. I'm under 40. I've been an employee. I've been a renter. I'm an employer. I'm a deed-restricted homeowner. I work on Bridge Street. I regularly talk to our guests, to our locals, to our workforce. I was a board member on CSE. I'm a new mom. I have a 1-year-old baby. I mean, the list goes on of things, and I feel just I'm an all-encompassing representation of a lot of this town who desperately needs representation on council.
Thank you. They deserve a huge hand. So. Thank you so much. Thank you, and happy voting.